Okay, hey everybody, welcome to Jon David's journey. My name's Justin Furlow. Um, my wife and I, our youngest son's name is Jon David, our oldest is Hunter. But Jon David has a congenital heart defect. Specifically, it's called toxic being. I'll explain everything of what that is in a different video. But just to kind of introduce you to all of this, we are currently on day 30 in the hospital. We've kind of known a little bit all along that this is going to be kind of an up and down journey. Starting 8 week of his pregnancy, we went for his 8 week appointment and they couldn't find a yolk sac. And so we were told it was going to be a miscarriage. But then at week 10, we went back. They were able to find the yolk sac. Things progressed. It was good news. So it was already kind of down, then up. And then at week 12, we went back for another scan since my wife was high risk with our first child, Hunter, and had preeclampsia. So then at 12, they saw something on the ultrasound that was abnormal with his heart. They were thinking truncus. So then we followed that up. About week 20, we got an official diagnosis, which is called toxic being. And again, I'll kind of follow up on a different video and kind of explain exactly what that is. At week 34, they found out that his aorta was going to be able to be used instead of having to use an artificial shunt, so that cut the number of surgeries from about 4 or 5 down to 2. So again, we kind of bring them back up. Good news. He was born at 39 weeks. And then from that point forward, it has been very much up, down, up, down, up, down. My wife had a C-section to have the birth. However, she did try to have a vaginal birth with him like she did with our oldest Hunter. And because of that, he was in the birth canal somewhat with his head, couldn't get his shoulders into the birth canal. And so with that, he did have a brain bleed. They called an MRI before his first surgery, so they delayed his surgery for a while. They said this wasn't really something unexpected with babies. It happens quite a lot at birth. Not everybody gets an MRI after birth. With him, it was a precaution they took so that way he would not have to worry about brain bleeds since they would be putting a blood thinner for the surgery. He had his first surgery. We got told, things were good after the surgery. That night, though, he had cardiac arrest. He went on ECMO, which is life support. Was on that. It was VA ECMO, and was on that for several days, and then came off. And then again, we got good news. He came off. Things were going well. That night, he started having seizures. Did EEG and ultrasound and CT, and the CT showed that he had a brain bleed. He had had a stroke, and it was a brain bleed. So then, we were also told that there was a thrombosis clot, there was a suspicion of a thrombosis clot, and so that was a long monitoring process of CT scans pretty regularly, figuring out whether or not the bleed was continuing or stopping, and then also trying to monitor if there was a clot there or not. Once they finally monitored and kind of came to the conclusion that the bleed had stopped and that could not see a clot on the CT. We're still waiting on an MRI. Once he is able to get the pacing wires out to actually confirm that there's no clot. With the CT, there seems not to be a clot, thank God. So once they confirmed that everything was good, they did a chest closure. It failed. He started hitting in the same direction that he had after the first surgery when he had his arrest, so the doctors decided to open him back up. He stayed that way for a few more days, and then they staged his chest closure into 2 different stages, so that way he would tolerate it better, and he did. And then they did some more follow-up CTs after to make sure the brain bleed was still continuing to be stable and wasn't growing any. And he had a pulmonary hemorrhage going to and from the CT scans. And so then now we are kind of where we are currently, where he has kind of stalled out on his O2 sats. He is desatted twice. He's kind of being food intolerant because they started his feeds, and they're trying to figure that whole thing out. So that's where we are currently. I know that that's a lot of info in a short amount of time. But that's been our journey so far with Jon David. And as we kind of go through this and make these videos, it's going to be kind of filling in on what his diagnosis is and kind of how his weeks are going. I'm going to try and have 2 videos a week to just kind of summarize how his progress is. I know there are a lot of people in our community who have been invested in him and us, and who have done a phenomenal job praying for us, reaching out to us, checking in on us. And so we thank all of you for that. And then also something my wife and I, when we found out that his diagnosis was Taussig-Bing, there's not necessarily a ton of info out there for Taussig-Bing. It's not a common diagnosis. And so if making all this and having this documentation is able to help another family who has this diagnosis, we really hope that that can kind of help them. Hopefully they don't have as many challenges in their journey. But definitely want to make this so that way it can be documented for us as a family. He can kind of see one day where he was, and then where he is when he's watching all this, and then also again if it's able to help another family, that would be wonderful. But thank you again for watching, and the next one I'll kind of go into his diagnosis and explain what all that is, because it's actually 2 or 3 separate things combined. So have a good night.